You see them everywhere, right? Personality types, office icebreakers, those endless online quizzes. We just love putting ourselves in little boxes. But here's the thing. This entire universe of personality typing, it all comes back to one guy, a Swiss psychotherapist named Carl Jung. And well, what he really meant by all this? It's probably not what you think.
I mean, this is the classic question, right? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? It's like the first thing we ask. We use these labels to figure ourselves out, our friends, even our coworkers. But what if I told you that the very man who came up with these terms thought sticking people in boxes like this was a really terrible idea?
Yup, you heard that right. Those are the words of Carl Jung himself. He called the whole thing a childish parlor game. So if this incredibly deep, complex theory wasn't meant for personality tests, then what on earth was it for? Let's dig in and find out.
All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. We're going to look beyond the labels and see the tool he was actually trying to build. Then we'll break down the key parts, what he called attitudes and functions, to see how they map out our conscious and unconscious minds. And that's all leading to the grand finale, this amazing process he called individuation.
Okay, first things first. We have to completely forget about the online quizzes for a minute and remember who Jung was. He was a doctor, a psychotherapist working with actual people, with real problems. His ideas weren't cooked up in some academic library. They were forged in the heat of the clinic. He wasn't making a game, he was crafting a tool. A very serious tool.
And the purpose of that tool? It was never about slapping a label on someone after a 5-minute chat. No. It was about creating something powerful enough to help navigate the overwhelming chaos of the human psyche.
He actually had a name for his work, critical psychology. And just listen to the words he uses here, a framework for sorting out and organizing. See, that's not the language of someone making rigid boxes for people. That's the language of a cartographer, someone drawing a map, creating a compass so we can find our way through the wilderness of our own mind.
So here's the difference, laid out plain and simple. On the left, you've got the popular idea, a quick system to classify people. But on the right, that's Jung's actual intention, a critical tool to help us organize the messiness of our own thoughts and feelings. It was always meant to be a framework for self-understanding, never, ever a weapon for judging others.
Okay, so how does this map of his actually work? Well, it all starts with what he called the 2 fundamental attitudes. And for Jung, this is all about the natural direction that our basic psychic energy, which he called libido, tends to flow.
And right out of the gate, Jung makes this absolutely critical point. Nobody is 100% an introvert or an extrovert. He was adamant that we all have both mechanisms inside us. What we call our type is just, the one that's a bit more dominant. Think of it less like an on-off switch and more like a spectrum.
So the difference really just boils down to this. For the extrovert, that psychic energy flows outward, towards the object, towards the external world. The focus is on what's happening out there. But for the introvert, that same energy flows inward, toward the subject, toward the internal world of ideas and reflections. For them, their own subjective reaction is what's most important.
But just knowing which way our energy flows isn't the whole story, not even close. We also need to understand the tools we use to make sense of the world, whether it's that outer world or our inner one, and this is where Jung brings in his 4 functions.
So imagine you come across something totally new. Jung says we have 4 basic ways to process that experience. First, sensation just tells you that it exists. You see it, you hear it, you feel it. Then, thinking kicks in to tell you what it is, It gives it a name, a category. Next, feeling determines its value to you personally. Is this good? Is it bad? Do I like it? And finally, intuition kind of whispers in your ear about its possibilities, where it might have come from or where it might be going.
And he had this absolutely brilliant metaphor for it, a compass. Just like a compass orients you in the physical world, these 4 functions orient you in your psychological world. Sensation tells you what's actually there. Thinking gives you its meaning. Feeling tells you its value. And intuition points to all the possibilities. Together, they give you everything you need to navigate your own experience.
Okay, now, this is where things get really, really interesting. because Jung explained that the way these functions are arranged in each of us creates this incredible dynamic, this push and pull between our conscious personality and our deep unconscious self. See, we don't use all four of these tools equally.
What happens is, each of us naturally develops one function more than the others. It becomes our superior function. It's the one we're good at. It's conscious. It's reliable. It's the tool we lead with. But, and this is a huge but, by focusing so much on one, we inevitably leave another one behind. And that becomes our inferior function. It stays relatively unconscious, kind of underdeveloped, and it's definitely not under our control.
This inferior function, it's a huge part of what Jung called the shadow. And because it's been repressed, it doesn't just go away. It stays down there, kind of primitive, raw, even infantile. It's the part of us that trips us up, the thing that just happens to us, often at the worst possible moment. It's like the barbarian that's lurking just under the surface of our civilized self.
So what this sets up is this fundamental tension inside every single one of us. The tension between our polished, conscious self and that raw, unconscious self. And resolving this tension, that is the entire point of Jung's psychology. It is the goal of a lifelong journey that he called individuation. And this means the goal is not to just keep getting better at what we're already good at while pretending our weaknesses don't exist. No way. The real path to becoming a whole person is to actually turn around, face that underdeveloped, shadow part of ourselves, and consciously, intentionally bring it into the light.
Individuation, then, is this incredible journey of becoming an individual. And you can hear the word right in there. Not divided. It's about becoming someone who isn't divided against themselves. It's about integrating the conscious and the unconscious, the strong part and the weak part, the light and the shadow into one single whole personality.
And this is such a vital point. This journey isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It means becoming a complete human being, and that requires us to acknowledge and accept all the parts of our nature, especially the messy, underdeveloped, difficult parts.
Jung loved to quote the poet Schiller to really drive this point home. Our modern world, it pushes us to specialize, right? To become really good at one thing, to become one highly developed function, often at the expense of everything else in our personality. What Schiller and Jung argued is that we have to use a higher art, the art of psychological growth, to restore that wholeness in ourselves that our culture has kind of broken apart.
So, this brings us right back to where we started. The point of knowing your type isn't to find a label and then just hide behind it. Not at all. The real point is to find your starting point on the map. It's to identify your own personal North Star, your superior function, and then to ask a much more important question. Which compass point have you been ignoring? Which part of yourself have you left behind in the shadows?